Testing, testing. Well, I'm going to have to apologize for not making plugins. I have this tendency to be infatuated with casting of metals. So, for me to be building these forms and thinking of them, and I know I'm just using an emap, but I wanted to show how generating these things can come from the maths within the Python script, which feeds the Grasshopper node, GhPython node, and then of course generates geometries in Rhino, which then can go towards fabrication. And this is not as slider friendly. It really is about kind of playing with the formula to find out what geometries you might want and the iterations you might want to be worth making. And it probably is going more of a kind of pure math, maybe not pure math, but artistic kind of sensibility. So what I've done here is I've pulled out, and I have some data I was expecting to pull out, and I didn't end up using it, so let's just simplify it so it doesn't become tricky to look at. But I basically brought in a surface on the bottom, and I brought in a surface on the top, and I generated those, and they're quite beautiful in my mind, and fluid and based in NURBS because they're NURBS surfaces, grabbing edges and then lofting to the sides. And that's about it. But what really is making those geometries on the top and bottom are, I believe this is the bottom script here, B. And yes, B is coming to, no, that's A, and B is feeding into this geometry. So the top is the bottom is the top. So the top one's fairly simple. If you look at it, it's a list made, and I'm using Rhino geometry because I'm using 0.3D as opposed to Rhino script syntax. It's not a big change, but it will matter more later, in my opinion, as I develop. But A is a list, and I is a range that will run through a range of I to whatever I set it to, and of course I've set that to 100. And then J will move through Y range, which will go from 0 to 18 currently. And then I've set a percentage of those values on, because I could take this through its nested loop. I and J, with a little bit of trigonometry, will actually build that bottom surface, which is quite beautiful. It's got a crease in it. It's kind of sine-based. I find it kind of fluid and beautiful, and it allows for these crisp transitions as it lofts up, and you get this undulated pattern that's coming mainly from the top. It's smoothing and soothing itself along the bottom. A little indentation here, influx on the inside. It's kind of like a paper bag. If it didn't have a top, it'd be like a crumpled piece of fabric. I think it's fairly interesting as a sculpture, maybe inspiration for a piece of architecture or something like that. The bottom is the top. So you see it's a little more jazzed up, and I've gone in and I've decided to add a percentage of range, which allows me to play through 0 to 2, and that will be the start and the stop of that, and the finish. And of course, I could probably bring the same data not just as the start, but minusing it from the end, and I was thinking of doing that. But then again, I got stuck on this kind of asymmetry, and of course, most things are symmetrical, and people like that and follow that, and it feels a sense of pleasing harmony. But I find something in the asymmetry that's actually more beautiful, or I respond to it a little better. And possibly comparing, you're feeling around, a beautiful egg as opposed to watching a tree blow in the wind. So it's there's things happening there, but there's a little bit of chaos that's in irregularities and outliers that make it more and more beautiful. I like this form actually. They have a hard time casting because I think, which side do I want to pour the metal in from and cap after? I actually think it's pretty nice. You can mill it out of a big block of aluminum, or it'd take forever. But there's no point having it solid. It can be hollow and manufactured in different ways. As a caster, I think I am going to take the sensibility more and more as it develops back into fabrication. But I've really had to leave the analog fabrication to move into a digital enterprise to start. But I definitely would like to see this piece made, and it's hedging on to some of the modern sculptors and where they reached a level of purity and perfection, and then it broke itself down because it was nothing but. Had a great conversation with a student this week at KCAI about this trying to move away from this world as much as possible, and then in the reflection itself shows the world. So I thank Jackson for that. Really wonderful discussion that I've reflected upon afterwards. Anyway, a lot of these talks are becoming a little more philosophical or maybe art related as opposed to the math that's involved. But to me, the math is really the inspiration to move into this. And yeah, I'm getting the point of making sculpture once again, and I don't want to move away from research and development and find that as an end game or a single iteration. But you can see within here the problems that occur as soon as I start dancing and choosing other forms. It's probably not even going to show. Like at times the script breaks quite often. You get some different forms as you move through, and you can see it's kind of dancing as a negative image, trying to do some things, and you know it doesn't function at all points in it, and so there's a lot of math in there. And I think I was going in and thinking to add convert these back to integers so they worked as a range. So there's a rounding that's causing some funk. So down here when I set the floats initially back into integers, I could do that through ceilings or floors. That's something to think about if you've gotten into coding or Python. But how is that really affecting the geometries to what you're doing? To bake a second form, let's just take this off and grab this one in whole and maybe move that one aside and see that we've made another form that possibly interlaps itself. And I don't know, we've got some time, we're 6 minutes in. Let's grab this range of y, and let's see, we're coming at 0 to this percentage range. It might be interesting to take the x range, copy, copy, and let's just take that and think, well, what if we threw that into there as x range? Yeah, let's take that and put this in, and let's take the x range. And I don't know, I'm just thinking mathematically out loud here, minusing the range of this percentage. And it might be good to think in order of operations, because order of operations does break down on many devices. But if you think with parentheses with orders of operations, you'll have a better chance of making it happen. Let's see what happens when we run the script. And it breaks for good reason, but it might not break completely. Keep in mind that it was not working through every iteration, and I might be minusing too much, and the percentage might be too tough on it. It's broken totally. So, I put it in there. You can see the level of what it's trying to do. Somebody else looking at this as a mathematician is like, what are you trying to do by doing that? But if I have an integer range and I'm trying to minus a percentage of that range, I probably want to minus a very small percentage of that range. And once again, I've probably broken down my script exactly where I should have been thinking. If I had to convert it to an integer, I should have converted that to an integer as well. So somebody else might have caught that before me, but that's how I kind of think, because you're looking in one direction and then you're fudging it with another. So once again, it's not a wonderful script, but there is one that starting to do some funky things as you see this stretch marks on this thing. And just a little example of working through, and I think it's good to go through if you want your mind around there. It's not really for the engineer or it's for the creative, mathematician, creative engineer, and architect. Not saying they're not, but it's like if you want to get lost into it and make it work for you, you've got to go in here, and you don't have to have, in so many cases, a total understanding of. And I'm off my screen baking right now, but you can see going into here what is happening. We've got some things that just have asked that to do too much. Let's leave that script. Let's go into here and grab this form, and let's throw on you can go up to analyze and surface zebra, and that's going to allow you to see there's a lot of strangeness happening there, and a top that didn't cap, so there was issues with the top capping there. And yeah, I'm making a mess, and I'm not really, fully understanding what's going to happen when I start playing with the maths. But to me, this is what it's kind of about. Pull it away from, and of course, I'm very tempted at this point. I'm just going to do it because I feel like it. I'm going to take a copy of that. I'm going to put it into the 38 range. I'm going to say, well, instead of X, I want Y. Instead of X range, I want Y range. And I'll run that again and see if we got any bit lucky. Percentage range, let's test. And what fell apart? This surface fell apart because of the U count. So the U count is what's breaking. So you've got to get back in your slider, and you've got to find a way making that kind of jazz and do things. Could be the percentages are too high for the numbers I had there. But it's hard to say, and it doesn't help if you don't have your visualization tools on. So take it through here. You can watch your script break in the grasshopper window, but you can also watch it break and do things in this window. And I'm having trouble with that U count. And it might be nice to say, okay, what is going on with that U count? It's not valid for the points coming in. Check, I've got a single point coming in, which is not good. Well, no, that's fine. That's the U count. The points coming in, I've only got 2 value of points, which is pretty lame. Probably because I've minus so many. Anyway, I'm stuck on it, stuck on the maths, and I'm lost. I'll be the first to admit it. The script runs, but it doesn't generate anything, so there's a breakdown in that. Since I'm going on 10 minutes, it might be frustrating for people to watch and get stuck on these things. I'll probably want to see my script as I play through, bring that one back and see where that one actually functions. We're only playing with 6 values and 20 and one list, and U count is 25, which is way too high. Let's bring it down, and it's rounding. It might be nice just grab a U count with a 12 slider, which you know is an integer, and jump in here and see if you can hit it. And there you go. You're going to hit it with 10. So I hate to do that, but for some reason the percentages aren't rounding to that even number. But I've ended up generating another formula. You see it's not slewing to one side or the other. It's not really dipping over there. It's kind of staying to the center. So yeah, a little bit of victory with a lot of playfulness. Now that I know this number slider 14 is working there, and other numbers, we'll work through that at a small level, maybe 9. What was that? If you zoom in, you can really get some tight configurations here. 10 is doing a little bit of a wrap over, so I don't like that funky pattern of what's happening there. My bag's getting too close, but it looks like 14 is a nice number for that. So yeah, it's a roundabout, playful way. It's probably going to be frustrating for people to see me do this and say, this guy doesn't know anything he's doing. But that is really where, for me, getting lost and being a bit creative. And it's an open bag, which I kind of like. So I would grab it all, top and bottom. And if I didn't get the top, let me just try that again. Take this and grab all those objects and take a bake. And I did get the top, which is not something I was too eager to get. But you have another shape here to play with. Leave your screen and click on your objects. I've got a weird bake line that keeps jumping in here at times because I'm just baking everything when I select that. It's pulling in some other data, 2, 2, 2, and 2. So it's actually grabbing edges and it's baking those. So that's kind of interesting. Anyway, a little analyze, surface, zebra, this shape, and leave it. And I missed that end, which is all right. And yeah, I'm okay with it. Probably should have grabbed that and well, whatever. Have fun with it. If you make a mistake, play around with what was going on, throw in another one, and see your little continuity and weird shapes. So, not the most important things ever had to be made, but then again, form, functionality and purposelessness and things like that, kind of banter off one another in the arts and design. Thanks for watching. It's a long one. It's a rambling one. I'm having fun with it, and I've decided to show some videos that show how I'm thinking when I'm going through these scripts. We'll continue, and we'll keep going with Rhino script syntax and put it into Rhino geometry, and hopefully this will get more and more complex, but you can see I get stuck in the maths way too much. Thanks.